first of all, Chelsea, I'm super grateful. I've never had anybody on Pretty Smart twice. And you are my first, never. This is really exciting for me. And the best part is that like we became friends after our first recording. And so you really hold such a special place in my heart. And I'm really grateful for this. And I freaking loved your book. Oh my God.
Okay, I heard from you in the beginning and then I knew you'd finished it and I didn't hear from you. And I was like, either on mic, she's going to say she liked it, or I'm going to have to like find out that she was like, okay on it. You were such a dear friend to me, especially throughout the book process. And I'm sad you only have a galley because you are in the acknowledgements. But that's only in the final copy. But yeah, you actually picked me up on probably my lowest day of writing the book and the whole 3-year process. So I'm very grateful to you. I cannot believe I am the first person to ever come back. I was like, wow, you're having me back. That is so kind of you. I didn't realize it was just me.
It's only you. And I've never been in the acknowledgements of a book. And so I feel like I could cry because you and I love books so much. We hold them so dear that to be on a page is kind of unbelievable. So thank you.
Oh my God. Well, thank you.
I didn't message you on purpose because I actually read the book twice and I freaking loved it, but I wanted to save it for our podcast.
Twice?
Yeah.
You have a lot of jobs too. Like I'm shook that you did that.
Well, it was interesting because you felt like this was maybe not an easy read. I felt like it was a really easy read.
Oh, good. My writing style and writing styles I like are easy reads where I don't want to read a sentence and be like, what did that mean? Like, I don't like that. I want you to like feel like easy breezy, lovely. I was worried because I'm a monster and I checked some early Goodreads reviews that the content of the book would perhaps, as I know from a lady who was like, oh no, too much, too much trauma to read about. And so that's what I was worried about. I was worried about that the content would be maybe too overwhelming for people. And I also think like, we've talked about this too. When you've been called too much or regarded as too much, or you're just like, you're a lot. By a male standard would be normal, but by a lady standard, you're a lot. And I'm like, I think I'm worried that my book baby is a lot. Like, is she too much? Is she okay?
I actually wrote down a quote because part of why I've always been drawn to women's stories and memoirs in particular is they confronted me and comforted me in the mess of my own life. And I felt like if these women's stories were messy or imperfect or sad and also happy, that I was less alone. And you were a kid that felt very alone in New Mexico. My therapist said to me once, if we look down on other people's misfortunes, we make it impossible to accept the sadness of our own life. And I feel like you are going to make a lot of people accept things in their own lives, whether it's sadness or something else.
That would be incredible if the book did that. I also felt very alone in Colorado, Utah, Nevada, California, and New Orleans, which are all the places we lived in before New Mexico. But I think very lonely in a way that definitely I didn't visually look lonely. I was always like pretty gregarious and outgoing, but I think feeling like you're the weirdest person in the room hiding your weird life, amongst a bunch of people who aren't going through what you're going through made me feel that way. And yeah, I totally agree with you of like reading about other women's stories definitely was the thing that set me free.
Who did you want to read your story? Who did you write this for?
Well, I really did write it for young me in the sense that I kept thinking like, what was I always looking for when I opened a book? What did I always need when I was looking for a book? And I did have her very loudly in my head. And so I hope that the people who go to books because they need something, not just a good story, entertainment. I do hope the book is very entertaining. I do hope it's a great story, but I always went to books being like, I want to be entertained, but like, I need something in life. I need some help. And I'm hoping that that's in there because I tried to put it in there. And I hope if there's anyone else like me out there that they find it.
Mm-hmm. You are a celebrity memoir connoisseur and you've consumed hundreds of other women's stories over the course of your life, more than probably anybody I know. How did that inform your approach when you were writing your book?
Well, definitely it gave me the courage to do it because I have just seen in these pages women have unbelievable courage and women with a lot to lose because I read a lot of female celebrity memoirs. So it's women who have their whole careers on the line when they are putting the stuff they're putting in that book. And a handful of them even wrote inside their books, tell your own story. It's going to set you free. Like me doing this has set me free, owning my own story, like taking my own narrative and telling you what it was really like. So that gave me courage. And style wise, I knew I'm not going to tell you about my grandparents' jobs in a way that is not relevant to the story. I'm not going to tell you what my dad's neck smelled like when he hugged me. I'm not going to describe daddy's cologne. Didn't have a dad, but wouldn't do that now. And I really did try to make sure I was
Kathy
always
Lee
telling
Gifford.
stories with a beginning, middle, and an end. Yeah, exactly. Like, and just so, but I mean, it's like droves of memoirs talk about dad's neck smell. And they also, a common trope that I really tried to avoid was montage memory mush, which is like the kitchen was like this, my mom was like this, on holidays we would, and the neighborhood was, and it's like, it's just mush. And so I really was focused on making sure that anything I was telling you was part of a story with a beginning, middle, end.
Yes, it's actually, now that you say that, I loved Michelle Obama's memoir, but I almost skipped the whole first third because it was just describing things and high school, and I was like, I just want the story.
Oh, I dislike her memoir because I can't I'm just like, give me you, hand me your heart. I don't care what the trees were like unless it matters to your story, but I don't need that much scene setting.
Yes. Well, I love the very first sentence of your book. It says, I didn't want to have an ugly story. And for a long time, I thought I wouldn't have to if I simply never told it. Now that your book is almost officially out in the world, your story will be out. How has it changed you being able to tell the story? It seems like you just ran into the mess and said, I'm going to live it and love it.
That is exactly right. Sharing my story, having the courage to do that was my last option. I tried everything else first.
What do you mean?
I tried everything else first. I could not, keeping something in, regardless of if it's logically shameful, the art, the act of holding it in makes it shameful. On top of that, I have some things that I genuinely just think are shameful. And holding that in was destroying me constantly. I tried tarot. I tried astrology. I tried breathing techniques. I tried meditation. I tried becoming a comedian for years. I joined an improv cult. I dabbled with other new age cults. I did therapy. I had some hospital surgeries. Like anything. I tried to be likable. I tried to be fun. I tried to get really successful. I tried everything. And it just wouldn't go away. And I think what I'm saying wouldn't go away was my own CPTSD, but because it's kind of this like harrowing feeling that lives inside you, where no matter what, there's this horrible shadow living with you. And so courage was my last option. And I just got so desperate that I chose it and just started sharing everything. And I keep trying to articulate this and I just don't know if I know how to, but like I remember several moments in my life, but years ago sitting with my therapist, once it had taken months for me to even get some of it out to her, truly, I don't know how to explain it. I truly believed it would be better off to die than to have people know some of this stuff about me. I thought it was unsurvivable to have it out there. And it took many, many years and lots of trauma therapy and lots of other things. But now I'm here and I'm on a podcast. I'm like, please buy my book. Please read about all my stuff. And that is such a miracle. And I definitely feel that miracle every second.
You talked about your new age healing, and on page 75, you really had me laughing because you talk about the psychics and the crystals and the astrological charts. And then you write,
Yeah.
by the time I was in college, it was apparent that something was deeply wrong with me and it wasn't going away, despite no longer being in Mercury retrograde. Um, but you say that like finding yourself journeys are often advertised with whimsy, and you tried all that, but yours really wasn't. I know you just mentioned that moment in therapy. Is that when you decided it was really time to work on yourself, or was there a moment that kind of clicked inside of you that said, I need to try something?
No, I've always been trying from the jump. I was like, this, whatever I'm feeling inside is hell. It was whatever, all these traumatic things were hell. I, like you, I would be like, okay, I find a lot of reprieve at the library. I find a lot of reprieve in books. I was always searching for something to help me. I also have a section of the book where I'm like, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I thought like, oh, if, money is a real stressor for our family. If I figure out money, all the stress will go away. Like I read every book. I tried The Alchemist, The Four Agreements, like all of that. I was always trying, and I just didn't find therapy and really the scientific approach to all of this
Mhm,
till later in life. And even then, I had to go through like 6 therapists to find the one that actually had the specialties
mhm.
and maybe the personality to help me.
Wow.
So, no, I was always trying. It just took so much.
You know, it's so interesting. I like you make everything so funny that I sometimes forget that so much of your funny comes from really deep pain. Like the fact that you just
Okay,
said,
thank you. What a compliment.
well, you just said I was living in such hell. Like even in your book, I didn't totally garner the hell.
Well, I think that's because such a duality can exist in myself, and I think lots of people and I think it's also how we survive bad situations or how we let something bad happen for so long, which is that like it's hell exists hand in hand with joy.
Yeah.
I wrote about, my one of my abusive stepdads and my mom, and it's like, but there were joyful moments throughout that, and so dare I say a livable hell. And when you don't know something's wrong,
Hmm.
it's easy to get through. And I think I didn't really realize something was deeply wrong with me. And again, the thing I'm saying is deeply wrong with CPTSD until I was probably like 22, and like a guy would not call me back, and I would be crying in a way that neighbors checked on me. Like, are you being stabbed to death?
Oh,
But
wow.
that's what was coming out of me when like a fucking loser didn't call me back. And when I say loser, I mean he wore dirty sweatpants to the date. Like nothing that should ever incur that amount of emotion. But everything was lopsided. There was other news I would get in my life, like that stepdad's death, where like it felt like nothing.
Yeah.
I felt like it's hot out today, and then you just go on with your life. And that's when it was kind of like coming clear to me that like, but then again, I'd be like, so what's in my astrological chart? Like, is this a double Taurus thing? Or like, what phase am I in? Or if I just manifest enough, or if I just think positively, I'll fix it.
Hmm. You were looking for answers.
Yeah, yeah.
What does CPSD stand for?
Yes, CPTSD.
C I
So
CPTSD.
PTSD, yeah. PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, which we know about, and there's lots of great studies about it, but that is typically a singular incident. So I, got into a car wreck. Like that could give you PTSD, and you're scared of it getting in cars, and we're really working with that. CPTSD is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which happens when multiple traumatic things happen in your life, usually in childhood, and they kind of entangle them in each other and inside your brain. And so to kind of process all the trauma, you're looking at like a complex web.
Got it.
And it shows up, it actually showed up in my life in a beautiful way. Like I achieved so much
Chelsea.
I'm serious. And people would be like, I don't know how you're doing it. I don't know how you're doing this much. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty amazing. Later learned it is a symptom of the mental illness. And I'm laughing because it's funny, but like I remember my therapist showing me this chart of symptoms.
Hmm.
And what I previously would have told you was my personality was 16 symptoms on a CPTSD chart.
Wow.
Even down to like hates yoga. That was on there.
Wait, what were some of the other symptoms?
Okay, so not liking meditation and yoga, having a secret sixth sense of like when someone's gonna like come up and talk to you or like get in your way or like someone's gonna like come and hit on you. It wasn't written like that, but whatever it was written like, having an eating disorder. Let me try and remember some of the others. Some intrusive thoughts, nightmares, suicidal ideation. These are getting fun. Very, very fun for everyone. Workaholism was a big one.
Yeah.
It's a lot about how you control and perceive your life, being extremely outgoing and friendly, hating to travel.
Interesting.
Which I do hate to travel. So it's like you go on Tinder and everyone's like, I love to travel. And I was like, I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just like a weird, funny personality trait, but it is linked to CPTSD.
I get how you conflated like a double Taurus thing. Like it.
Of course. I'm like,
a lot
I
of
love
sense.
a bath. Yeah. I love to be cozy, girl. I'm a double Taurus. Yeah.
So some of the trauma that you're alluding to is, I think, one of the most painful topics of your book. You call it the big, scary domestic violence thing. And so for everyone who hasn't read it yet, there's big parts of your book that are blacked out that you couldn't tell, and for what I assume are legal reasons, but you actually said it was your husband that gave you the idea to include it in the book and just black out the details. Can you take me through that decision?
Yeah. So I wrote the entire book. And mostly I wanted to write a memoir. One, I love memoirs, but I really wanted to tell this story of this violent relationship I lived through when I was very young, where my boyfriend ended up doing 3 drive-by shootings of my house. And that's sort of like the last things that happens. That's like how it kind of, the story ends. It's not even close to the entirety of what happened inside the relationship. And the last chapter of the book was going to pick up 10 years later when I was on stage performing comedy at the theater I worked at. And a sheriff walked in the building to subpoena me back to court to reopen that case that we had already decided 10 years prior. And I was told to delete all of it, or I couldn't. I was told to delete all of it, that it couldn't go in the book and that it was too dangerous to include. And it's, my first question is, too dangerous for who? And in the name of like protecting victims, our system is set up to silence them. And if you look at studies of how domestic violence continues to be something so prevalent, it happens to 1 in 4 women, it directly ties to the silence about it. Silence from victims, silence from abusers, silence of our stories being told at all. It has such this ick to it. People really put it in the genre of like thrillers and Lifetime movies. Like that's it. So I really felt that once I found the resources to be able to talk about it within myself, that writing it in my style, which does include comedy, could be a way to get people to hear a story that they might actually see themselves in. And I think the only way to make change is like for these stories to actually be good stories, specifics, details, relatability. I know that girl. I could be that girl. That was my mom. Something like whenever it's just like a headline, like crazy thing happens to woman, you just go like, oh, that's not me. That's not where I live. And it is. And anyway, so I told them I would not delete it. Not only was it so important to me, it was the reason I wanted to have a memoir, but I also felt just story-wise, there was no way to explain anything about my life unless this incident was there. I didn't even know how I could write around it, let alone emotionally. And so I said no, and I canceled the book, and they were like, take some time. And I pitched them a bunch of things of like, could I tell a story about I don't know, a shithead unicorn and a cute little mouse. And lawyers don't have great imaginations. And they were like, no, just no. And yeah, I was devastated and I canceled the book. And it was like one of the most traumatic downturns of my mental health in recent history. Like it was so bad. I was having a hard time getting out of bed because it was kind of like this recreation of everything I've already lived through before, which is like this horrible thing's going to happen to you and you can't fight back. You have no resources. Nothing will help you. Be quiet about it. Hold it inside. Keep this secret. I finally got the courage to fucking share this thing that I never wanted anyone to know. And then they told me I couldn't say it. And all of a sudden I was like, I must say it because it took decades to get here. And yeah, so my husband, Yasser, was like, why don't you just black out enough words that they technically can't tell you no? And they were like, yeah, I guess technically we can't say no. And I was like, good. And through pure rage, I decided that if I couldn't tell my story, I would use the black bars to tell the story of how our systems are set up to silence victims and victims of domestic violence specifically, and to keep as much of my story in there as possible. And that's what I did. And anger got me through it. But right now I feel a lot of grief about it. Right now I'm like, I'm like, the grief has finally hit me a year after making that decision.
Wait, I'm so interested in that because I actually feel like the black bars are a huge part of this book and in a positive way. Like I think you're saying so much and I still understood the story. Where is the grief coming from?
I had words under there. You know, it's so wild to be able to be told, like, you cannot say what happened to you. I didn't commit the crime. If I committed the crime and they're like, hey, don't print this, I'd be like, you know what? Smart. It's like, I can't even say what happened to me. And the story, I don't know how to explain it. The story is so much weirder than you could even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to take a lot of the weird parts out because with black bars around them, it's just like gobbledygook. I had to not tell a lot of this story. And I don't know, I feel like I'm in prison with it. You know what I mean? Like I really thought I was going to like overcome it and like write my story. And it's just so wild to be like, no, like it just feels like, I don't know.
Yeah, they're doubling down on the shame that you were freeing yourself from.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, I have a bunch of jobs. I have savings. I already had an entertainment lawyer because of what I do for a living. I had the money to get other lawyers. I have meds. I have a therapist. I've done so much processing and I have so many resources that I did not have when that was happening to me. And there is something about like not being able to like avenge that girl that is killing me. Because I really thought when I finally wrote it down, I was like, okay, here we go. Like, I'm going to go make it right. Oh, I'm going to cry. And it was so hard to try and like get it to stay in the book and try and be like, I had help at the time, but it wasn't enough. And they were not. Trauma is a hell of a thing. And when other people around you are also traumatized, they don't make great decisions. And I was so young and we had no money and I just like did not have help. And the second time, even then I did not have enough help because I was so embarrassed. I like turned help away. I tried to deal with it myself. And so this third time I was like, here we go. I'm old enough. I'm in control enough. I'm about to fuck some shit up on behalf of the past. And I still fucking lost. And it kills me.
It's so interesting that you feel like you lost. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think the loss is still TBD. I still feel like you're avenging her.
I hope so.
Yeah. How did you handle revisiting the trauma when you were actually writing it?
The first time when I was just writing the story was so difficult so I think when people hear the word trauma, I think they think of a feeling like you feel really bad, which yes, true, but it actually quite literally affects your brain. the size of it, how it functions, what parts turn on and off, how they process time and space. It truly scrambles your brain. And so I turned in the first chapter, which was like, and I did it last because I knew how hard it would be. And I turned it in, and my editor was like, I'm going to be as gentle and loving as possible and let you know that it sounds like a robot dog wrote this. Like, it sounds like someone was like, here are some facts and the end. Like, she was like, this is bad. And I didn't disagree, but I know what it feels like in my body to write, because I'm a TV writer. I write every day. I know what it feels like. And when I would go to write those things, like, I couldn't think of a word as fast, and I didn't feel as creative, and the actual writing was shittier, even down to my syntax. Like, there were so many changes. I had a friend like help me proof it, and she was like, what happened here? Like, she was, and I was like, yeah. So I actually went back into my journals that I kept as a kid, and I used a lot of my former writing, which is wild because it was so hard for my brain to go back and write it. But I had written a lot of it down within like a few months. I would go, like, those first few years after it happened, I was writing about it constantly, and it was just really haunting me. And so I had all this writing, and I was like, shit, get ready to be a published girl.
On a like personal note, I know you have such an amazing, beautiful husband and a beautiful relationship with him. I can't imagine it was easy for him to like see you in that state, because I'm sure this took a few weeks or months to write this portion.
You know, I think during those sections, it was probably fine. I think he really saw me at my worst when I was told I couldn't include it. That's when it got bad. He just gave me a necklace, and it on the front is this, it's a little tarot card that says the reader, and it's like reading a book, and on the back it says no ugly stories. And I'm just like, man, I dated so many people that I could have never, no one has ever come within miles of like who he is and what a match we are. And also, I think the fact that he went through so much stuff also allows him to be someone that's like not scared by it.
Now you made me cry. That's so beautiful.
It was a really beautiful gift.
That's like, oh, to be like fully loved like that is like, I think just what everybody is craving and seeking in life. That's so beautiful.
I feel so lucky and privileged to marry him, and yours is coming. Everyone, yours is coming. Just do not settle with the other boyfriend I dated for a long time that's in my book. Whoever that is in your life, don't settle for them. Just keep
searching. You know, of the many consequences of the big, scary domestic violence thing, you say that this man killed the woman who you were going to become. I am so curious because I like know and love this version of you so much. I can't imagine who you thought you were going to become. Who was she?
Way better. Way better. I joke in the book, like, what if she would have been a huge bitch? Like, you know, but the truth is that I'd already been through a lot of fucking shit before this happened.
Yeah.
So if we're going to believe that a certain amount of bad things shapes your character or makes you a comedian or whatever, I'd already had enough. I did have enough for all those things to have happened, if that's what trauma does to you. So I really did not need this. I did not. And I think she would have just been able to enjoy life without a lot of fear that I always have with me. I think she would have been able to enjoy vacations. I think she would want to fly to Maui for the weekend with someone. I don't. I think she would enjoy herself a lot more. I think she'd be a lot fucking funnier. And I think she would pay less in therapy. And all of those sound like great things to me.
Do you think you gained anything by losing her?
No. And I know the good answer is yes. And it happened for a reason. And
there's no good answer. There's just the honest answer.
Yeah. No. no, I think it ruined my life.
Mm.
And I think it's been like really hard to crawl my way back to a person who is proud to be themselves. And I've definitely been doing all that work, but it did take a long time. And I think it stole intimacy from me. I mean, like, I could not. The fact that I was able to eventually find it with my husband, I is like something I take credit for every day with myself. Like, because I was in a bad place. Like, I could not date people.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You write about changing your name several times in your life.
Yeah.
And you say that the names were all associated with terrible memories. How do you think that changing your name shaped your relationship you have with yourself?
Well, definitely it was like the most beautiful thing I could have ever done for myself. I was 16 years old when I chose my new name. Um, and I'm just so grateful I didn't choose a name like Pizza, because that is typically like a 16-year-old shouldn't be in charge of doing
Was that on the list of considerations?
I'm sure it was.
Okay.
And to be honest, I actually think that'd be, as a comedian, what a missed opportunity. Fuck, I wish my last name was Pizza. But yeah, I'd had three different last names by that point. And it's at the time, it didn't feel traumatic to change my name.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one, when I changed it to my own name, was like beautiful. It was this like, I will not be following you fuckers anymore. Will not belong to one of these dads who's not even my real dad. I love my mom so much, but I was like, not even you, my friend. Like, no one can be trusted but me.
Wow.
To be in control of my own life. I was so sick of having my name changed. And I now know, looking back, like, when you're a little kid, the basics matter. The sky is blue, the grass is green, that is my mom, that is my dad, this is my name, here's how I spell it. Like, they matter a lot. And to have that stuff changed really fucks with the basic stability that each human should have in life. And so I think for me, I was trying to give some of that back to myself, of like, we're going to be stable from now on. Now that we're in charge, we're going to be stable. And I just adore my husband so much, and he actually carries his mom's last name. And so he's not changing his last name either, because he's so close to his mom and he's carrying that side. And me and everyone in my family always had a different last name growing up. And so I thought, like, I'm getting married and we may like foster adopt kids one day. I do want us all to have the same name, because I don't want the situation I had. And so I thought to myself, like, I should change my last name to my husband's last name. And I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
Really?
And yeah, because there was a 17-year-old in me being like, I will fucking kill you.
Like, we work so hard to
we
be
worked
this
so hard.
person.
We promised ourselves. I watched my mom change her last name. I watched my name change with husbands. Like, no.
Wow.
And I had a friend say something that I actually believe is true. She's like, hey, sometimes 17-year-olds are wrong. It's not like they know everything. And I was like, you're so right. But I still, it's like, I couldn't break her heart. And I still think, like, should we ever have kids? Maybe I can change it then. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But I even had this like horrible feeling of like, if I change my name, we'll definitely get divorced. Like, I felt like I was like that's how, and none of that's logical, but that is what like was in my heart. And I was like, I just can't.
Those types of feelings, though, come from trauma. Like, it's like the idea that
For
every
sure.
decision is so critical. It's life or death almost.
Yeah.
Is such a trauma response.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, we talked a lot about trauma, but I do want to touch on something really beautiful and funny, because this book is all about the women in your life in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And your godmother, Grace, is by far my favorite character in your book. And I say character even though she's real, because she is a true character of a person.
She really is.
She was a part of a lot of your very personal moments. Grace drives you to Chicago when you start doing improv at Second City. Grace gives you advice for getting into entertainment despite having never worked one day in the entertainment industry.
Never.
She took you to look into getting a breast reduction, which is
That's right.
a very
Even though I didn't want one, she thought I needed it.
yes, and it ends up actually being like so traumatizing and sad.
It's horrible. Yeah, it was horrible.
It's horrible. Do you think that you would have ever made some of the leaps in your life without Grace?
Never, never, never. Oh my gosh, never. You cannot. It's what they say about like why representation is important, because if you don't see it and you don't know about it, you do not know that you can do it. And she was the first person who was like, hey, if you want a good life where you don't where you have money and you don't need a shitty man to stay around, go to college. And I was like, college. Okay, very cool. I am the first person in my family to graduate from college. I did go to acting school, so it was a wash, but we came close to carrying that through. And I mean, I remember I heard, this is in the book, I heard on Channel 1 News that students in Georgia got to attend college for free if they had all B's or above because the Georgia lottery was paying for it. And so one day Grace came to visit and I was like, listen, you told me about college. You're not going to believe what I heard on Channel 1 News. I'm moving to Georgia in 3 years. I will attend high school there somehow. I will get all B's or more and I will go to college for free. Can you believe? And she was like, oh, did you know there's something called a scholarship and financial aid? And she was like, there's something so special about being raised by someone unhinged, untethered from reality. Just not believing in the rubric of society and then telling you, a child, these ways to exist that aren't real. So she was just like, go join the city council. That would look good on your resume. I'd be like, okay. She's like, and I'm like, how? She's like, ask. I was like, okay. And I got a ride to the city council and I was like, can I join? Can I be a junior member? And they were, I think, so shocked that they were like, sure, sure, small child. And I was like, great, would love to put this on my resume. I'm going to college one day. And joined the fucking city council. And so definitely would not have done things like that without her. And she really did. She told me when I was very young, she was like, you are extremely special. And because she was unhinged, she was like, you're a genius. You could change the world. And she meant it. She meant it because she was like, you are like me. We are amazing. We can do anything we want. And I believed her. I had no reason not to. So I went about my day being like, I'm pretty special.
But okay, first of all, I agree with Grace. And maybe I'm a little unhinged, but I'd like to think that I agree. I think you're on your way. Like you are a culture changer.
That's so funny. But also like what I think to myself, like every 10-year-old girl I meet, I'm just going to be like, their parents are going to like get away from her, but I'm going to be like, you are so special.
Yes.
You're so fucking special, because I think she really made me think I was going to do something special. And I think like being told that as a kid is so important, whether it's true or not. And then you grow up and you're like, and now your friend thinks it about you. And I think it's because she was like, hey, believe this. I think it's true.
Well, I agree with you that you only, a kid, like statistics show you only need one person in your life to say, I love you and you're special to really make a difference. But I did the whole book feel like Grace saw something in you that she had and didn't get the opportunity to fully live out.
What's interesting, Grace definitely lived it out. I promise. Like everything she has ever wanted to do, she has done. That chapter was so long, so much had to be cut out of it. And listen, for everyone listening, I am aware this is offensive. I am not the one who did it. Grace went to Egypt and wanted to sit on a pyramid and hopped the fence and climbed it and did.
You're kidding.
I'm not. I don't know. I mean, no, I'm not. And so trust me, I said unhinged from reality. And it's also a very good thing that she was my godmother and not my mom, because you do need some stability in life. But no, she has everything she has ever wanted to do. She has found a way to do it. She used to be like, I think that guy is hot, but I heard he likes blondes. I'm going to wear a wig. And she'd put on a blonde wig. She'd go to sleep with it. She'd wake up with it. I'm a blonde now. And go hit on the guy of her dreams.
And I want everybody to know that Grace wears a ton of leopard print. And
Mhm.
to this day, Chelsea feels like leopard print is a neutral because of Grace.
That's right, baby. And so is a loud floral.
Yes. Okay. Wow, you really have me laughing. Okay, so when you were 14, you found out that the man who you thought was your dad was not your dad and that you
Yeah.
were conceived through a sperm donor. So you write,
Yes.
humanity was stripped from me and replaced with a permanent aching. And this book dives very deep into how this revelation really shook you and shaped you in a way I think a lot of people who are experiencing something similar could seek comfort in, because this is really not written about often. In those times that you
No.
felt really disconnected from your own identity, how did you find your way back to yourself?
I still have to, kind of constantly. Finding out everything about half of yourself is a lie at 14 is just sort of like, it just breaks everything, you know? And putting it back together, I feel like is actually a daily process.
Yeah.
And definitely, I came so far with my trauma therapist. And I think especially because there's not enough studies about us, because they quite literally hid us and didn't keep records or burn the records, and like very purposefully made all of this anonymous. And so even going to get help for this, my therapist is like, there's not like studies for me to study
Yes.
as to like how to help you. And so we actually borrow a lot from the adoptee community, not me and my therapist, all of us, because more has been written about them. And we have so much in common as communities, as donor conceived people and adoptees, and like what it psychologically does to a kid
Mm-hmm.
and an adult and a human and a person. And so it's funny. I learned I'm so weirdly so grateful to have that chapter and to have recorded my audiobook, because often I will suddenly feel like, who am I? Everything I am is a lie. I don't deserve to be here. Like it's so overwhelming and confusing and intense, and I just feel like panic,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, who I am like does not fucking make sense. And every time I go and read the chapter, I go, oh yes I do. Yes I do. It's fine. It's internally sometimes feels like I can't live with this. But then when I read it, I go, yeah, it's crazy, but like it's livable. It's like sometimes it's even funny. And so I really put myself back together by a lot of grounding techniques, about reading my own writing, about just looking at the facts. That's a lot with trauma. You know, you go to these panic modes and you say, okay, wait, what are the facts? Who
Yeah.
am I? And sharing it. Really, the secret was killing me. And I think sharing it now, I feel so much more like myself, that I've never felt this way before. And I feel it now, where I'm like, I finally got to be myself when I finally got to come out as donor conceived. Because that is such a huge part of who I am. And I wasn't letting it be a part of me because I was trying for people to not know.
Part of it too is the way you found out and being 14 and not growing up knowing. It's very convoluted.
Yes. And there's so much like, there's so many factors that go into it, of how you find out and how it was taking place and how your parents talked to you about it, and all
Mm-hmm.
those things affect it. Just to stand up for my mom for a second, she did tell me when I was very young, when she and my fake dad divorced, and again, there was not literature at the time for them to know, like, you can't tell a 4-year-old once. You gotta, they don't know what you just said to them. You gotta
Yeah.
say it like every day, constantly. There's children's books now that you can read about it. And little by little, there are more donor conceived people who have professions like mine, who are now starting to tell these stories. But as of now, like, I could count the amount of popular books that, like, really popular books that exist about being donor conceived. The number is 2. It's Inheritance and Kerry Washington's memoir, because Kerry Washington is donor conceived.
Yes.
So not a lot. That's not enough books.
Mm-hmm. Well, I shouldn't be telling you this, as we're adding it to the list. And I want to talk about drag because
Sure, yeah.
in the interest of time. So you're living in Chicago, you're doing improv, you're scraping by with pennies and eating food out of cans, and you decided to start performing. And it had all of these like really wonderful impacts on your career. How did doing drag change the way that you perform?
It definitely, it changed everything tangibly. You can see reviews from my previous shows that I would do in comedy, not in drag, just as a person. And
Yeah.
they'd be like, she's cute, that's fun, haha. And then I go and perform drag, and then you see the reviews of my shows become like amazing. They're like, she's the Michael Jordan of the cast. She'll eat your ass up. Like she like it was just like a totally new person. And important is that I was performing femme to femme drag.
Mhm.
So I am cisgender, and I was performing the gender of female as a female drag queen / monster. And I had not figured out a way to love myself because it's so hard. And they're like, love yourself, date yourself. And you're like, yeah, I'm trying. But it actually was so much easier for me to create the type of woman I wanted to be, perform as her, and then go back to being me, and there'd be like little remnants that like stayed.
Yeah.
And it helped me see something I'd never seen in femininity before, which was power. And yeah, it changed everything for me.
I didn't know that about you, so it was very fun to read.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It was really good. Okay. You say trying to make it in this business felt like hurling myself at a brick wall day in and day out. And there's just this relentlessness to the entertainment industry. I see it in entrepreneurship. I've heard entrepreneurs call it the resilience Olympics. I feel that way about Hollywood and entertainment. You said something to me that's not in your book that I'm wondering if you're comfortable sharing, because I've been thinking about it ever since we had dinner.
Oh my God, what did I say?
So you said to me that you thought you needed professionals your whole life and then you could finally make it. And actually the best advice were the people that you knew.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. I always thought like, okay, once I get enough success or money, I'll get a PR team, and I'll have and whatever they do will make me have like a good big career, or I will get an agent who will really fucking know what they're doing, and that agent will open the doors and give me this career. And basically there's all these incredible expert people, and I just need to work hard enough to get to them. And then I got there and I was like, most of you are dumbasses. This is unbelievable. And I'm not saying I'm better than them. I'm saying I'm also a dumbass, and we're the same. And this whole time I thought you knew something that I didn't know. And I really, I really felt it the most when a couple things happened in life. I fired some managers and reps who were like very fancy. And I said to my lawyer, I said, who is a manager who's a really young woman just starting out who reminds you of me? Like, who is me as a manager? And I did say, like, as if I was a pervert, like, what's a young woman? But I'm a young woman. So I was like, I don't want a fancy manager. And they were like, you should meet Jordan. I signed Jordan on. She's barely ever done this in her life. She turns my entire career around and is the reason I have a book. It's the reason we're going on tour. It's how I have a podcast. It's how I rebranded. It's how we have a business. It's like all of that. You need incredible people, but they're like not above you. They are beside you. And the other moment I really felt it is, well, 1,000 moments, but like I would go and try and get expert advice on PR or getting my stuff out there, negotiating my salary. And no one ever had anything better to say than my text thread of 6 incredible women in entertainment who have found ways to book shows, get people jobs, find lawyer advice, like find the best PR move, find the best marketing thing, find the best joke. Like they all always knew better than anyone I had gotten fancy access to.
So this is in your book. You call the thread Roger Roger. And I feel like so many people can relate to this because there's like a counsel that we have in our lives in this group text thread. But you say you actually have a Google Doc where you guys have dumped endless pieces of wisdom.
Yeah.
I need this doc published, first of all, but second of all, can you share 1 or 2 pieces of advice from that Google Doc that you think are just so worth sharing?
Yes, absolutely. And I actually put my favorite one in the book. It's unhealthy, but it is to, before you find the answer out to a project that you are working really hard on, let's say you have a big audition, you're turning in a manuscript, you want to find out if you got the job, this thing you've done. start something else. Again, I didn't say this was healthy. I just said it's the advice. Start something else, a new pitch, a new whatever. Start moving that thing along, because the crash of the first thing not working out has been something that I have had a hard time finding my willpower to get back up from, because this business is so hard.
Yeah.
So I would always have the momentum of the new thing to keep me moving, no matter what happened with the first thing. And if both of them worked out, now you have two things. Another piece of advice, and this is a really, really easy one, which is that anytime you need a favor or help in life, before emailing the person, whether you know them or not, just do a bunch of research on them, even if they're your friend. Go listen to, see if they've ever done a fucking podcast talking about their career, see if they've ever written anything, put anything out, get all of that in there. And then when you reach out to them with an action. So it's not like, hey, could we meet up and talk sometime? It's, hey, I'm a comedy writer and I have a new script and I'm trying to get it read. Do you have any advice? Because I know you fill in the blank thing that you know about them. Then me on the receiving end, or anyone on the receiving end, goes, oh, actually my friend's looking for a comedy writer and you sound like a good fit. Let me like match you to them. Or here's some actual advice for you. But the like, hey, can we meet up? And the this will just like, it'll just become mush. Scheduling and do you have the time and then the whatever. So always have an action ask when you reach out to someone, and always research them beforehand, because you'll find a way to actually ask them in a way that makes them want to answer yes.
I think that's such great advice. You said that this book brought you and your mom closer, not further apart. I was actually kind of shocked to hear that. I'm really
me as well.
I'm really glad that that's the case. How is that the case? What were you scared that it would change when you wrote it?
Well, there's a lot of stuff in there. A lot of stuff that in my mom's generation, resilience and being strong meant not talking about it. And safety meant not talking about it. And she definitely passed that on to me. You know, don't tell people what the fuck is going on, because that means you're unsafe. And to turn around and be like, I actually don't think that's good for us anymore, and I'm going to tell everyone everything, is, I didn't know how that would go. And the reason it brought us closer together is because my whole life I was always trying to make sure my mom was okay. And so that did mean hiding a lot of my pain, because if my mom knew I was in pain, then she'd not be okay. She doesn't want that. She loves me so much. And so the reason we're closer is because I was never actually being myself. And I was hiding a lot of pain from her. And to her credit, she has held my hand through this. It's been hard, but she's like, I'm going to hold your hand with you. And we're going to do this. And I am trying to be like, listen, your story is actually really beautiful and you don't need to be embarrassed about it. I'm trying to give to her what I've given to myself, which is like, we're not going to be embarrassed anymore. This is actually pretty fucking cool what you did. And I can look at her story and feel that way, but I know she still feels really embarrassed to be in abusive relationships, and that it's embarrassing. It's not fucking embarrassing. It's like cool that she survived. So I'm hoping this book is giving that to her. It's certainly what I've been trying to do. We're holding hands through it. She's the only one I've got. I'm a donor kid. Like I've just got my mom. And so I really like, and I love her so much. And she was always doing her fucking best. And she's definitely doing her best right now to have a daughter on a podcast being like, blah, blah, blah. Our life was weird.
How do you feel being a cycle breaker?
TBD if that's truly what I'm doing.
You are. I mean, you've already broken a huge cycle. Your mom was in an abusive relationship. You were in an abusive relationship, and you're not. No.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like
and
if you have kids,
now,
you won't see it. They won't. If you decide to have kids, they won't see that.
Yeah, that is pretty fucking cool. Thanks, Danielle. That made me feel nice. You know, resilience is interesting because it's definitely my best quality. I got it from my mom. But the ability to get back up and keep going over and over and over again often hides how much you've gone through. People can't see it. They think, oh, especially in women, oh, she's so confident. Oh, she looks like she doesn't care about anything. Oh, she thinks she can just do whatever she wants. Like that they think they should jab you, that almost maybe you deserve to be taken down a little bit.
Mm.
And I think I'm hoping to just show some more vulnerability, because I think this whole time I've been like, we're going to get through it. We're going to fucking fight through it. And now it's like, if I don't get through it, I think it's like, I'm not going to try and pretend that I'm doing great.
Yeah.
And just to really throw a curveball at this podcast, it kind of makes me think of JLo. We're nothing alike, but that woman's strength. I mean, to put out a fucking documentary for an hour long of like, this is my love story with Ben Affleck. And 1 month later, it's like, actually, we're maybe getting divorced. And now she's like walking the Met carpet and doing press for Atlas. I'm like, the fucking strength. But because of it, everyone's like so fucking annoyed, you know? And I think
That's interesting.
Isn't it though? You're so mad at her for not showing the pain, which is a weird thing that we only do to women. You know, and
yeah, I mean, if men show pain, we're like, oh my God, they cried. They're amazing. It's so
God, it's
sexy.
so hot. Yeah. Oh my God, I cried. Yeah. And I think like, I've just been thinking a lot about like strength and breaking cycles and pushing forward. And a part of me is like, maybe I put the book out. That feels like enough. let's go down the lazy river after that now.
Knowing you, I feel like that's not the route, but I hope you do take a vacation to Maui for a little lazy river time. Or just stay here. I don't know. But like a vacation.
Like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Like
you don't have to pack.
We're going on. I'm doing a book tour, but maybe after that.
I can't believe you're doing a book tour with how much you hate airplanes.
I know. I'm going to be on so much Xanax. Who knows if I'll even be able to speak at these events.
By the way, if you don't already follow Chelsea, please do for this book tour, because she will get drunk on a plane, get to her hotel, and start Instagram storying the whole thing, which is truly entertaining.
You know, this is why you're not supposed to take wine and Xanax.
Okay, so I want to end on something very fun, which was your royal wedding. There's a section of the book that goes into the wedding, and it truly was your version of a royal wedding. I was lucky enough to know some people that attended, so I saw photos on Instagram, and everybody came dressed to impress in the Chelsea and Yasser way. What did planning that wedding really mean to you? Because I know with you, it's always a little bit deeper.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Once you plan a wedding, you suddenly feel like you should give advice, which I do feel. And I feel like wedding planning didn't fully make sense to me just because I didn't really grow up around standard wedding culture. So a lot of it was like, wait, we're going to pay money for what? Yep. But I do love weddings. And when I really saw it as a way to reflect who we are and make choices that tangibly show what our relationship is and what our values are, even in things that maybe we hadn't decided yet. Like, are we people who spend $1,000 on a basketball court at a wedding? Is that who we are? Do we serve Taco Bell and not salmon? You know, these are things we're making. And
I hope the answer to all of those are yes.
Yeah, it was. We did have a basketball court and we did have Taco Bell. But it was like so beautiful to get to make something with him that was like fully, it's like making a shrine to your relationship, which is fucking awesome. And definitely we both paid for it ourselves, and we were definitely wondering if that was smart or good and if we should have like gotten a mortgage on a house instead. And in the middle of the wedding, we found each other, we were dancing nose to nose, and both of us at the same time were like, oh my God, every dollar was worth it. Every dollar was worth it. We would have spent more. I was like, because I was just sort of like, man, I'm going to regret, I'm going to regret this. And don't put that on your credit card. And we were just like, every fucking second was worth it. And I did know that like, I wanted to create something that we could always like look back on and touch that would remind us of like our relationship and who we are. And I think we did that. And our dress code, for everyone who wants to know, was try and outdo us. And I think everyone really showed up because he and I are so nuts and bananas. You did know what we would look like, and you did know we meant it. Mm-hmm. And
people that didn't try and do like outdo you were the ones that looked weird, you know?
That's right. And there was only like 4 of them who were like, oh my God. Oh my God. So you didn't just mean like a sequined sweater. And I was like, no, I did not.
Yeah.
There's someone in a cape over there. There's a
Yes.
woman holding an umbrella made of birds. Like, come on.
I have to tell you, I don't like weddings and I've never really wanted one. And I, in my head, will think about like, how could I do this in a way that I would want one? And I've never heard anybody share that. And then when I read your book, I was like, oh, this sounds fun. I actually maybe want one.
Yeah. Okay. I love that because first off, I'm so sad we weren't friends for you to be at my wedding, but now I'm friends to be at your wedding. So I am going to need you to have one.
Yeah. And it
like,
better be really fun like yours, you know?
I really think the key to weddings, because some people are like, wait, so would I have to like have exploding confetti to like have a good wedding? And I truly think, because I love weddings when they're good. When they're bad, it's the worst thing you've ever been to in your life.
They just feel really contrived.
So contrived. And so like, we're all being quiet on purpose, even though there's a baby crying 100 feet away. Like, ew. Like we're eating dried salmon and pretending the mother of the bride knows how to speak. Like, not fun.
Yes.
But I do think anytime people throw a wedding that is really emblematic and true to them, that it is really a ceremony, a portrait, a museum, a show of who we are as a couple, it's the best wedding I've ever been to. Even when that is really tiny, chic, cute elegance. If it's them and it feels real, it's the best.
That's the best advice I've heard about weddings. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay. Thank you for letting me, because I've got advice, got things to say.
Yes, you do. This whole book, actually, your story, without being preachy, is full of advice. You just learn from being on the journey with you. I have a few rapid fire questions and then you're officially done with me.
I'm ready.
Okay. Fill in the blank. I am the woman I am because of
a bunch of bullshit.
The best advice you've ever received that you applied to your own life, that you actually applied.
Where you go is where you'll end up. So watch where you go.
I feel like that applies to relationships too. Someone said to me once, it's really easy to fall in love with the wrong person. So be careful who you spend time with.
It applies to everything. It applies to even if you're like, oh, I want a new hobby. Okay. You are going in a direction. Make sure you want to be there.
It's a choice. Mm-hmm. Someone who's made a difference in your life.
My mom, my husband, my dog, my godmother, my teacher, Ann Libra.
The best makeup tip you learned while performing drag.
Ooh, best makeup tip I learned while performing drag: use weave glue to adhere heavy eyelashes.
I don't think I'm ever going to use heavy enough eyelashes to use weave glue. So thank you.
You should try. You might love it. You might love it. You never know.
Only on my wedding day. Okay. A book that you've read that has changed your life, something you think everybody should read. And you can't say the one that you said the last time.
What did I say the last time? I don't even know. I don't think everyone should read this, but if you have been through harrowing domestic violence and you are someone who reading about other people's stories helps, The Other Side by Lacey M. Johnson. And if you are donor conceived or adopted, You Should Be Grateful by Angela Tucker.
Okay. Tell me when to stop.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I love this. I love when you do this. Stop.
Okay. Ooh, this one's deep. What are you still trying to prove to yourself or to other people?
That I deserve to be here.
I think we all feel that.
Yeah.
What's the smartest decision you've ever made?
Marrying my husband.
That answer you can.
That's so gross. That is so gross. I'm so sorry to everyone listening. You're like, it's like I married my best friend, but I really mean it in the sense that I told myself every fucking day of my life since I was 8 years old that I would never, ever, ever get married. So it was a harder decision for me than many other decisions.
I also, when I started hanging out with you, I remember saying like, thanks for spending your night with me. Cause I know like you'd always rather be with Yasser. Like you like your husband, which is something that I aspire to. So thank you for being such a great role model.
Oh my gosh. And also I like my husband so much because I always prioritize friends too. And I love you. And I want to say on mic, I apologize for the restaurant I took you to. Instagram made a reel. It made the restaurant look beautiful. I made a reservation 1 month in advance. I thought I was taking you to heaven. It was disgusting. And everybody watch out.
But I had 2 glasses of wine, which is 2 more than I usually have. I ended up having a great time.
Because you had to get through the cuisine and the vibe. It was so rough. Never trust Instagram reels when you pick your restaurant.
You are the vibe. You are the vibe. Chelsea, thank you. And thanks for writing this book.
Thank you so much. And I love you so much. And now I'm ready for yours. Don't cut it out. We're all ready for Danielle's book. Everyone go tell her we're ready.
We're cutting that out.
Write her, DM her. We're not. We're ready for your book.